All right, everybody, welcome tonight to PEP Talk by the Maryland Forward Party. My name is Matt Byers. I am the chair of the Maryland Forward Party, and I have with me
Tanya Sweat, one of the directors for the Maryland Forward Party, and
Pete Oliver Kruger, head of the Priorities Committee and one of the leaders for the Maryland Forward Party.
And so what we're going to talk about is something you've probably never heard of, and we're really excited about this, but it's a different way to have a debate. It's called Prioritizing Epic Problems, or PEP, and I'm going to let Pete explain it a little bit further.
All right, so Prioritizing Epic Problems is the full name of this, and we shortened it to PEP Talk, so PEP, just for a quick way to talk about it. And basically what it gives us is an alternative way to have a debate, where instead of fighting about solutions, which we often do, we instead can start to find some common ground over talking about the problems that we want to solve. So the number one rule of a PEP Talk is no solutions. We want to get back to what are the problems behind the various different things that we want to do. So, for example, some people might really like Medicare for all, and so they might say that a problem that we have is we don't have Medicare for all. We would not count that as a good problem in a PEP Talk. We would want to ask, what is the reason why you would want to have Medicare for all? Because Medicare for all is a solution to a problem. So what is that problem? So the problem for them might be that healthcare is too expensive. Say, okay, so that's something that maybe we can all agree on, that healthcare is pretty expensive, and then we should do something about that, independent of which solution that we choose to do.
The traditional problem is everybody starts throwing out solutions, and, I want healthcare for all, or I want to close the border, or I want to do this or that or the other thing, and that's great, but they're not really all agreeing on what the problem they're trying to solve is. So they're trying to implement a solution without understanding what they're actually trying to solve. And so we're taking it from the other side and we're saying, okay, that's great. We hear the solutions, but before we get there, let's make sure we agree on what the problems are.
And so one more point about what makes a really good epic problem is being epic, being long-lasting. So that often gets us to defining much better problems that we can look at in the long term. And we also tend to, in that same way, not make it very specific about any one particular person or group or situation that's happening right now. If we kind of genericize it a little bit and make it more about the general concept, that's going to work well. And you'll see that in some of the examples that are going to be coming up in the PEP Talks that we run. So another thing that you're going to see in the video that's coming up is that each person is going to get 1 minute to be able to present an idea or ask a question or make proposals on changes on that. But then we're going to move on to the next person. But it really does help to keep things flowing and gives a chance for the original proposer to either accept the idea or the thing that's being talked about, or give a chance to refute that a little bit before moving on to the next piece. And so you get to hear from more voices. And everybody has a different perspective. Everybody interprets the words differently. And then as you hear about it from each of those different perspectives in little 1 minute chunks, you figure out that better wording, and it just builds that collaborative process, which gives you much better results.
yes.
Yes, it's the collaboration that's really important here, in that you don't. I never felt, as I was going through this process, and I was the first one to present a problem, but I never felt like anybody on the team was attacking me or saying, well, that's a dumb idea. No, they examined the statements that I made, and they respected them and tried to make them better. But it was truly collaborative. Yes.
Let's just dive right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, for the series that you're seeing in these first couple of PEP Talks that we're going to run for the podcast, the prompt question that we gave to ourselves as a leadership was, what problems, if they were not addressed by the Forward Party, would make us as leaders of the group consider wanting to leave the party if it was not handled?
So one of the things we're going to see here, and I don't mean to talk too long, but one of the things we're going to see here that's really kind of cool is I came up with an idea that I thought was a really cool idea, and it turned out really not to be as defined as I thought it was. And so the team went through the process of reconfiguring it into something that I think is much better in the end than what I came up with originally.
Yeah, another one things I like about this first example here is that we went from the specific to the more long-term kind of epic kind of thing. So you came in with an idea about a specific problem we're dealing with right now with specific people. And where it evolved to was something that we could use for years and years and years. Anytime this comes up with any politician in any kind of situation, this is going to be what we can go back to and to figure out how to deal with it.
As I was thinking about this presentation and what we did here, one of the things I really liked is as we go through this process, you really get to define the problem.
Yeah.
As we already see, we had two problems merged into one. And as we get further into the debate, I think it comes out that words matter. And some of us took different meanings from the words. Mm-hmm. So in talking through it and not arguing about it, we were able to clarify really what the crux of the issue was, and then decide where it falls on our prioritized list.
Absolutely. And one of the other things it does is it forces us to deconflate issues.
Right.
And more often than not, I listen to people talk and they're like, well, immigration is causing voting issues, and you're like, wait a second, these things are two separate things. Why are you conflating them? Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't do that. And this process forced us to say one problem at a time. Not that we can't tackle all the problems eventually, but let's write them down one at a time and get them clearly stated. Yeah, and so this process was just really quite a great example of why I was coming at it from the wrong point of view and why this changed my point of view.
So what you're going to hear now is a live recording of an actual PEP Talk that we held as members of the Maryland Forward Party. So have a listen, and we'll see you on the other side to talk a little bit more about it. All right, Matt Byers, you're up next.
My problem was about extremism and endorsing extreme candidates, specifically hate speech and religious freedom or lack thereof. So all of those ideas, to my mind, shut down debate. And so my problem is, I guess, focused around preventing shutting down of debate.
When I looked at this, I got a chance to look at this a little bit before, I saw this as maybe, I was going to propose that maybe this is a couple of problem statements. That there may be a problem statement in here around diminishing or sidelining others, or diminishing or sidelining other voices. That it may be a separate problem of voicing one religion over another, or maybe a separate problem of hate speech to appeal to a base at the expense of others. I think each of the different subpasses here are actually pretty good problem statements.
Yeah, I guess one of my concerns when I originally wrote this was thinking about the religious right and what's going on there. And I don't want us to go that way. We have avoided any discussion of religion in our debate because we respect the Constitution. And I'm seeing politics being mixed with religion, and that's bothering me.
And of course, we're most popularly known as separation of church and state. So do you want to make this your problem statement?
Sure, that looks good.
All right.
But there's probably 4 problem statements in there.
Yeah, probably. So we'll do that one as a separate one. So since you were first on the board, so here's the proposal. So then the proposal for debate, since this is very first, is should we add this to the list? Is this important enough for our prompt today of, this is important enough that if we do not tackle this issue, you might want to leave the Forward Party, or if Forward National does not tackle this, that we may want to disassociate from Forward National. Any objections, or is this going to pass through unanimous consent? All right, we have an objection. So we're moving into the debate section. All right, so you can start queuing up and raising your hands if you've got a point. So we'll go for Michael first. What's your point of debate?
Sure. So my point of debate is just how it's worded can be very nebulous, and especially with current debates around Israel and Palestine and how certain factions are trying to pull religion into that political debate as well, that it gets very hairy very fast. I get where Matt's coming from with the rise of Christian nationalism. And, as someone who's following stuff about the work that, better or worse, that the Church of Satan is doing with trying to say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. How do we tighten this up so it doesn't, the tendrils don't spread out and we have essentially it gets away from us essentially.
Did you want to put a suggested alternative wording up, or you can just put that point out for debate and then other people can respond?
Yeah, I'll put that point out to debate because I haven't figured a better wording at the moment. But if I do think of something, I will raise my hand again.
All right. Adam.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if it's like enough to clarify that we mean kind of that statement literally. It's as in, like right now, if you take a certain very limited stance on certain geopolitical events, you can immediately be labeled as like anti-Semitic or something. Like, so, I mean, is that the direction? Is that the concern we're talking about right now? Like, as in, I think the way it's specifically worded is, it does specifically say any candidate who voices an opinion for one religion over another. I think that's fine, so long as it is limited to that interpretation. But anyway, that's.
Yeah, I would say in response, I would say calling out someone as anti-Semitic could be allowed, because otherwise you can't criticize somebody for voicing an opinion of one religion over another. You can't correct it.
Agreed. I guess what I'm saying is, if somebody were to say, "Oh, this particular action by Israel went too far," that wouldn't fall under this current thing right now, right? Because you would not be trying to say,
Oh.
yeah. Anyway, like, okay. So.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to talk about geopolitical stuff. It's just literally about religion in our country.
Right. And so I think what I was getting at is, if anything, we could add another clause to clarify that scope. But kind of rereading it, it's almost like I think we're still good. So long as, I mean, because the literal statement is like you'd have to literally be a candidate that voices opinions of one religion over another, which commenting on geopolitics really wouldn't do. So,
All right. Looking at time,
Mhm.
We'll go on to Brandon, but if you want to come up, Adam, with a alternative phrasing, you certainly may.
I will defer. No, nothing comes to mind immediately.
Brandon, you're up.
Sorry, I forgot to make a log there about him, but I'll come back. I think I may have missed my opportunity for a clarification, but if it's okay to use that here instead of debate. Okay. So when we say, again, the problem statement is if not addressed by the forward party. Are we calling the forward party the national headquarters or any state level team not addressing this issue?
I can toss that back over to Matt. Yeah, I'm gonna toss it back to Matt.
So the way I was thinking about this was, if any forward candidate, and I was thinking across the country, voiced an opinion for one religion over another and they were not shouted down,
So if it, let's say, an endorsed candidate in Utah said something very, very clearly against, that met this example, and the Utah team did not revoke their endorsement, you would leave the Ford party.
And that also assumes that National didn't say anything as well.
So no one made a statement against it. National didn't make a statement against it. Utah didn't make a statement against it, and they didn't revoke their endorsement. If one candidate did that, you would leave the Ford party.
Well, the prompt was what would make you consider leaving. So
Okay.
yeah, I would definitely have something to say about it before I did, but yes, it could lead to that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not saying it's a black and white instantaneous, oh, they did that, I'm out.
Sure. It matters. The response matters. The response.
Right.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thanks. That helps. That helps me think through this. I think that was it for my clarifying. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
That leads me into so put in my hand as another amendment to this, which is that any candidate who voices opinions of one religion or over another and is not, I had a phrasing for it, but basically is not, I don't want to use shouted down, but
Disavowed.
And is not disavowed by National Party. Sure.
Yeah. Get some Mission Impossible language in there.
Okay. Do you like that language?
I do.
All right. Michael's up next.
All right. So yeah, just trying to replay things in my head too. One thing too is just kind of based on this reading of who voices opinions for one religion over another. I'm going with the rules lawyer gonna rules lawyer. If someone says, "Oh, my preferred religion is this," that falls under this clause. So it's one of those two. I feel like they prefer the religion of the candidate isn't, and their personal opinions aren't necessarily that important at the moment. It's more of what they're planning or their legislation and what they plan to do with the force of government essentially behind it. If
Okay. So if we were to change the word opinions to policies.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought of that as you were saying it. So I was.
Yeah, then that actually is a lot more succinct and better. Who voices or I guess puts forward or endorses might be, but yeah, that's a lot better wording than what I was thinking. So yeah, let's go with that.
All right. I had a similar sort of thing. So I think I will just leave that off. I think this wording is good. Any other points of debate? I think we're almost at 10 minutes anyway. All right. I will initiate a motion to take a vote on adding this as the first one. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. So we're up for a vote. All right. So any objections? That might be the fastest way.
Right.
I see no objections. Or raise your hand if you have an objection. All right. Going once. Going twice. No objections. Any abstentions? Going once. Going twice. Unanimously accepted. Fantastic. Thank you. So that was our first example of a pep talk.
One thing that was really cool here is watching what happened to my epic problem statement. So, I proposed it and it was this big mishmash of 4 different things, and we narrowed it down to separation of church and state. Okay, and I said, any candidate who voices opinions over one over religion over the other, and people put a caveat on that and said, is not disavowed by National Forward. That's great, and changed opinions to policies. So who voices policies, and so actions that they would take, and it really improved the problem. The whole process improved the problem.
Right. And it acknowledged your concerns about the problem. It also took into consideration some objections that weren't necessarily stated as objections, but it gave those of us who didn't agree with how you stated the original problem the opportunity to literally fine-tune your concerns, and it allowed us to share in that concern and make it a problem for everybody to think about and not just your personal issue.
Right, yeah, you're right. I don't think it was objections in any sense. I think it was clarifications. There were a
Right.
lot of clarifications made because my problem wasn't clear. But I did feel seen and heard during that process.
Exactly.
And I felt that I saw and heard everybody that commented on it as well. So yes, it takes a while to do this. I'm not going to lie to anybody. This took us a good deal of time, but it was worth it in the end because we all as a team felt good about it.
And everyone was actively listening and participating in defining just this initial problem and all of the other problems that we discussed during the session. But it makes you feel valued, it makes you feel heard, and you're not arguing back and forth, because the arguments, you lose something.
Yeah, and you can't interrupt each other. You have to wait for your turn, so you have to write down your ideas. And that's okay, but it teaches us a little bit of patience. But at the same time, I can't tell you the number of con calls I've been on where I'm playing a game or I'm typing an email or I'm doing this or the other thing. But this one, you're absolutely right. Actively listening, like I was focused on this. Not just because it was my problem, but through the rest of it as well, because it was an interesting process.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that gets to that is the minute. So no matter who's talking, whatever they're saying, that in less than 60 seconds, there's going to be a chance, that person is not going to be talking anymore, and you get to hear something else, whether it's you that's going to be contributing to the next point or somebody else is. So it makes it a lot easier to feel part of the debate and stay engaged with the debate, because you're going to be able to come in more quickly. As opposed to traditional debate where somebody may be given the floor for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then people just eventually just sit there and check out until, just waiting for their time when they get to talk. And then they get up and talk for 15 minutes, and there's 30 minutes right there. So 1 minute, the power of the 1 minute, I think is really strong in this technique.
Well, and then, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And then you add to that 15 minutes that they use, they usually don't address the question that was asked to them at all.
Exactly.
Right.
They talk about whatever they want to talk about. Whereas here we were focused on the one problem, and there's lots of problems. We're going to get to them. But for this period of time, we are all going to focus on this one problem and this one problem alone. And we're not going to try to go off in another direction and talk about immigration or national debt or anything like that. We're talking about separation of church and state right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't allow for anyone to listen to argue, which leaves room for assumptions of what you mean. I appreciate the opportunity to ask for clarification, because that forces me to ask you a question. What did you mean by that? Or is this really what you mean? This is what I'm hearing. And so it gives the person presenting this problem the opportunity, let me clarify my words. Maybe that didn't come out correctly. Maybe that's not exactly how I wanted you to take it. Whereas when you're in a normal debate, I'm having this visceral, emotional reaction to what I'm hearing without truly understanding what you mean.
Well, let's face it, we're all human.
Yeah.
And sometimes our mouths move faster than our brains. It's just a fact of life. So, but it doesn't mean that we're bad people. It doesn't mean that we say exactly what we mean all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth the opportunity to ask a clarifying question. Hey, this is what I heard. Is that really the way you meant it to sound? Oh, no, that's not what I meant. This is exactly what I meant. And
there are the things that we mean to say, and then there are the things that actually come out of our mouths,
Right.
and they don't always match up. And it's great to be able to get a chance to make the adjustments, because sometimes we really didn't mean to say it, or it happens to me all the time. I'm like, I know what I want to say, I don't have the word right now, so I'm just going to say this thing right now, and then we'll figure out what it is. And somebody else in the room always has they're like, oh, did you mean this? Yes, exactly. That's what I meant to say.
And
So-
because words matter, and because different words have different connotations, if you choose the word that's close to it but not exactly it, because you can't come up with the right word at that moment, it completely changes the meaning of your sentence,
Yep.
which you didn't intend.
Right. And somebody can say, did you really mean to say that? Thank you for joining us for this episode of the PEP Talk podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at maryland@forwardparty.com and let us know what you liked and what we can do better. And we'll see you again at a future episode of PEP Talk podcast with the Maryland Forward Party.